Warning: these social media platforms may be hazardous to your health. Censorship kills. Pain coming. This has been a PSA by Breaking Spectre. Well, good morning, everybody. How we doing? Spectre here. It is the 11th day of November, what we call Veterans Day here in these United States, formerly called Armistice Day. We salute the veterans and that who have served, continue to serve at this point. We're going to talk a little bit more about that here a little bit later on in the broadcast here today. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the all marketplace. Oh, a number of things. What's going on in college degrees, a little bit of Apple, shipping, of course, electric grid. Oh, Zillow's still in the news, GM talking about chips, all those sorts of things. Stick around, we'll be right back. Hey everybody, Spectre here. I want to tell you about my Teespring store that I just opened up with a handful of products in that for you guys, the listeners, the audience, those that are in chat on a day-in, day-out basis. Always appreciate your support, and I figured what the heck, we'll throw some merch out there for you guys. And so obviously with YouTube and Earth Shenanigans as of late, I'm going to be looking to expand to other platforms, and well, it all comes at a cost, so I figured what the heck. That being said, I got some t-shirts and that out here. You can see those in black, white, and gray. Spectre Does News. Got a water tumbler, 20 ounce there. Got a coffee mug you can get in black or white. And of course, we got the Let's Go Brandon #FJB shirt, which you can also find in black, white, or gray. Right now, you can find that all over at https specters-storefront.creator-spring.com. That's https://specters-storefront.creator-spring.com. Thank you for your support. All right, well, right into it we go here this morning. Weather-wise, well, we've got a band of storms running right through the middle part of the country. Definitely feeling that here in my location here this morning. Definitely see the old leaves coming down, the rain coming down. And it's, that time of year, typical for, November. Finally get all the leaves drop off the trees, and of course, the rain helping bring that about. A little bit of a disturbance net up in the northwest as well, so you may be getting some rain up there. The rest of the country, well, you guys might be in the clear at least for a little bit. And of course, looking temperature-wise, net, this is kind of what I'm keeping an eye on, is this guy right here, this pocket that's supposed to come shooting across here, may see potentially some snow here in the next couple days. Yeah, kind of a dirty word. Hopefully that doesn't materialize and just basically be some flurries. So, that being said, let's get into it here this morning. Futures rebound from post-CPI rout as China property stocks soar. U.S. futures rose and European bourses once again rebounded from overnight lows, this time after concerns that scorching U.S. and Chinese CPI and PPI prints will prompt central banks to tighten much sooner than expected. The bounce was aided by a surge in Chinese property developers, which booked their best two-day gain in 6 years, joined by a jump in technology stocks as investors speculated Beijing may soften regulatory crackdowns on the two industries. At 7:30 a.m., S&P futures were up 16 3/4 at 0.36% to 46.58 and change. Dow Jones futures were up 40 points or 0.11%, and Nasdaq futures were up 97.5 or 0.61%. The dollar index rose and cash treasuries are closed today for Veterans Day. Wednesday's stronger than forecast data on U.S. consumer prices finally crushed the argument that inflation is transitory and weighed on the tech sector in particular as Treasury yields spiked. So finally, perhaps, let's quit calling this for this fake narrative of it being transitory. It's in transition. It's temporary. Baloney. This is built in. We know that. We can see it. We can feel it. We can see it in our pocketbooks every single day. That being said, what are some of the movers today? Well, Beyond Meat shares plunged 20% in pre-market after the maker of plant-based meats released a disappointing sales projection for fourth quarter. Fossil jumped 33% pre-market after the accessory maker boosted its net sales forecast for the full year. Bumble, the dating app that lets women make the first move, reported earnings in the third quarter that missed analyst estimates. The shares fell 7% pre-market. Disney shares fall as much as 5.3% pre-market, with analysts flagging softness in its Disney's Plus subscribers and net income in its fiscal fourth quarter. Rivian jumps 8% in pre-market after the electric truck maker soared in its trading debut on Wednesday. DD gains 4% in pre-market after Reuters reported that the company is preparing to reintroduce its apps in China by the end of the year as regulators wrap up their investigations into the ride-hailing giant. Marqeta gained 17% pre-market, with analysts saying the payments platform delivered a strong beat and raise report for third quarter. SoFi Technologies rises 15% pre-market, with Jefferies saying the fintech's third quarter results are a strong beat. FIGS shares sank 14% in post-market trading on Wednesday after the seller of scrubs for healthcare workers reported a third quarter profit in line with analysts' estimates. Oscar Health fell 10% post-market Wednesday after the Upstart Health insurer projected a deeper adjusted EBITDA loss for the full year. Payoneer Global, the payment solutions company, gained 8% pre-market after its full-year revenue forecast beat the average analyst estimate. And Wish fell 2% after the e-commerce services company posted an EBITDA loss for the fourth quarter. So, flashing forward to a couple others here, Auto Trader jumped as much as 15% to a record high, with Jefferies saying its new guidance should drive mid-single-digit upgrades to consensus estimates for the online car listings platform. Sika shares surge as much as 12% following the acquisition of construction chemicals peer MBCC, with Bader, Vontobel, and Morgan Stanley all positive on the deal. ArcelorMittal shares rise as much as 4.4% after the steelmaker's results, with Citi saying the update has a positive tone despite the numbers missing estimates. Siemens shares rise as much as 2.8%, with analysts saying the German industrial group's update was encouraging, with its dividend among the main positives. Johnson Matthey shares plummet as much as 20% after the company warned on its current trading and said it will exit its battery business. Burberry shares slump as much as 10% after the luxury goods company's comparable store sales missed market expectations, with analysts saying consensus estimates are likely to remain unchanged, and the focus will be on the upcoming management change. So aside from that, checking at the old market snapshot here, S&P 500 futures up 0.4% to 46.58 and change. Stocks Europe 600 up 0.1% to 484 and change. The Nikkei up 0.6% to 29,277.86. Shanghai Composite up 1.2% to 35.32 and change. Gold spot up 0.7% to 1862.18 per ounce. U.S. dollar index up 0.19% to 95.03. The euro down 0.2% to 1.1461. And Brent futures up 0.7% to 83.18 a barrel. As far as overnight news out of Bloomberg, the European Central Bank could stop buying bonds as early as next September if inflation looks to have sustainably returned to the official target, Governing Council member Robert Holzman said. China's efforts to limit fallout from China Evergrande Group's crisis are gathering steam. A series of articles published in state media in the past few days signal support measures are on the way to help developers tap debt markets, potentially easing a liquidity crunch that began with Evergrande's meltdown 5 months ago. Customers of international clearing firm Clearstream received overdue interest payments on $3 bonds issued by Evergrande, a spokesperson for Clearstream said. Over to News Squawk, and still in Asia, Indonesian stocks close at record high on economic rebound. Signs of easing as delayed bond coupons paid, according to an Evergrande update. Asia stocks slip after U.S. inflation spike, weak 10-cent sales. And Keza tells investors it may not make coupon payments, according to REDD. Back over to Europe. UK growth data leave December Bank of England rate rise in the balance. Scholz aims to winter-proof Germany against new COVID wave. Kering says creative head Daniel Lee to leave Bottega Veneta. And Gas Crunch fuels RWE profits as energy giant burns coal. Interesting. Also, events calendar today, pretty skinny on the day. 9:45 a.m. we got November Langer Consumer Comfort. Prior was a 49.2. As far as the old central banks does, well, nothing major scheduled, likely due to the holiday. As far as some earnings here on this Thursday, a couple before bell, PaySafe, Hut 8, Wix.com, Yeti, to name a few. And we've got a few after bell, Blink, Luminar, Shift, and a couple others not here. And then we got a handful probably to kind of round things out on the week. And that's pretty well going to wrap up most of the earnings for the third quarter. So aside from that, says over 25% of college degrees have a negative return on investment. So it makes you wonder, what is it we're actually sending our kids to college for at this point? What are they getting out of this? Are they just junk degrees and it's kind of a money suck? Is that all it is? So according to Mike Shedlock, says the median bachelor's degree has a net ROI, return on investment, of $306,000, but some degrees are worth millions of dollars, while others have no net financial value at all. So according to this graphic here, the negative ROI is in the kind of this yellowish orange color, and you got the gray, a little bit darker gray, blue, black, whatever, above $1 million. Public administration, communications, journalism, political science, other social sciences, all the way to and through visual arts and music, which seems to crest at just under about 70%. Philosophy, religious studies, life science, and biology, next one down. Not too good ROI. Says, is college worth it? Please consider a comprehensive return on investment analysis of college degrees. Says, for students who graduate on time, the median bachelor's degree has a net ROI of $306,000, but some degrees are worth millions of dollars, while others have no net financial value at all. Says, after accounting for the risk of dropping out, ROI for the median bachelor's degree drops to $129,000. Over a quarter of programs have negative ROI. Says, for the most part, students' earnings with a degree exceed their earnings without a degree. At age 45, the typical college graduate out-earns her counterfactual self by over $25,000 a year. But there are exceptions. About 7% of programs, mostly in art, music, and religion, have higher counterfactual earnings at age 45. In other words, these programs would not pay off even if there were no other costs to college. ROI varies substantially by major. 69% of engineering programs deliver a lifetime payoff of $1 million or more, and 97% have ROI of at least $500,000. Says another strong major is computer science, where 85% of programs have ROI exceeding $500,000. Programs in transportation, construction, and architecture also deliver handsome rewards to their students. 77% have a payoff above $500,000. But plenty of programs have ROI that students might consider disappointing. 68% of programs in visual arts and music have negative ROI, meaning graduates are worse off financially for having received their degree. A majority of programs in philosophy and religious studies leave their students in the red, along with 28% of programs in psychology, English, liberal arts, and humanities. A surprisingly high 31% of programs in life science and biology have negative ROI. The most likely explanation is that many students pursue these majors in preparation for a lucrative graduate degree in medicine. The ROI analysis in this report considers returns on the bachelor's degree alone. It says if biology students don't use their degree as a springboard for medical school, they will typically see disappointing returns. And of course, none of this is the least bit surprising, yet every year, tens of thousands of students pick college programs that make no economic sense. And that does not account for dropouts, where 100% of programs have negative ROI. Add to that kids pressured into college who would really rather be in a trade. Parents with kids in high school should read the report, and so should their kids. It's quite comprehensive with dozens of charts. So there you have it in a nutshell. Uh, what I don't see on here, and I presume maybe this plays into visual arts and music, are all these like gender studies and things of that nature that you see colleges start to offer. What is the benefit to that stuff? What is the ROI on that? I gotta believe it's probably up there. Maybe it's already roped into that grouping there. I don't know, but it's ridiculous. At the end of the day, what are you gonna get a job in? Flipping burgers afterwards, is that going to pay off by the time you're 45? Probably not. So stick to STEM programs. My opinion anyway. But next up, judge denies Apple's latest attempt to force developers to use its App Store. And of course, this has been an ongoing battle. Apple and its CEO Tim Cook just took a serious legal hit from Judge Yvonne Gonzalez Rogers, who rejected the consumer tech giant's attempt to delay the results of the September ruling from Apple's court battle with Epic Games from taking effect. Apple filed a motion to delay an injunction in its case against Epic Games. The injunction would have permitted developers to immediately direct their customers away from their iOS ecosystem, including the App Store, to pay for whatever services or apps provide. But the judge denied Apple's motion, liberating developers from the tech giant's restrictive and highly profitable for Apple rules. Judge Gonzalez Rogers said that Apple must comply with an earlier order that permits developers to direct their users away from iOS apps to pay for services, meaning Apple can't take a cut of these purchases. The ruling is just the latest twist in Apple's legal battle with Epic Games. Apple tried to obtain an injunction to delay the judge's order. So, for context, Apple levies a 15 to 30% commission on all in app purchases made in the App Store, a practice that Epic Games and other developers, including music streaming company Spotify, have claimed is anti competitive. Apple's anti-steering rules means developers are not allowed to tell users to go elsewhere, for example to a web browser or their email, to purchase the same products. This rule effectively guarantees that Apple will take a cut of every single transaction, even though the company has often had no hand in developing these products. So, as we reported, Judge Gonzalez Rogers ruled partly in favor of Apple in September, but also mandated that Apple must get rid of its anti-steering rules on the App Store, which many analysts interpreted as a win for Epic. Says at one point, per The Verge, Judge Gonzalez Rogers apparently had taken issue with the fact that Apple was asking for an indefinite delay. You haven't asked for additional time. You've asked for an injunction which would effectively take years, Gonzalez Rogers said, per The Verge. Apple now has until December 9th to start allowing developers to steer users away from their iOS apps for purchases such as subscriptions. Why is this such a big deal for Apple? Well, under Cook, the company has depending increasingly on service revenues to maintain high levels of growth. Just take a look at the two charts below from Apple's latest quarterly earnings. And of course, here we see presumably the September one here. Yeah, that's up north of about 18 billion. And of course, the service revenue growth year over year, currently sitting at about 25.6, down from about just under 33% here in the latest earnings. Says, in other words, the decision doesn't exactly bode well for Apple's growth in services sales. And so Epic and Apple have been going back and forth over this for some time. But it also makes you wonder, hey, for the little guys out there that develop these things, it's good for them too that somebody isn't making money off of their hard work putting this stuff out there. They just automatically get a cut just to have the privilege of being able to be offered in the iOS sphere, I suppose. And it just makes you wonder too if people like Parler would otherwise get deplatformed after this ruling as well. I don't know. Have to kind of keep an eye on it. So, outside of that, shipping's extreme consolidation could prolong supply chain pain. That's out of FreightWaves yesterday. It says U.S. policymakers have never been more focused on global container shipping than they are today. Yet the steel of this industry, the ships and the containers, is outside of U.S. control, consolidated in the hands of an extremely small circle of non-U.S. companies that continue to bolster their market shares. The big keep getting bigger. Olivier Gasquier, CEO of container equipment Lesser Textainer, summed up the situation during his company's quarterly conference call. The question we always get is, how long will this last? In my opinion, it's really about consumer demand that's running very high, and this can only be resolved in two ways, either by consumer demand coming down a bit or with infrastructure investment increasing. And as you can guess, infrastructure investment takes a long time. So our view is very much that this environment is here to stay for some time. And because of that, we're unlikely to see a change in behavior of the various players in the industry. So, no incentives to change behavior. Now, mind you, how many ships do we have sitting on the water at the moment? Well, here we go, right there. There's Long Beach, LA. We've seen this time and time again. I think the last count, we might have talked about 70, 80. I think perhaps maybe altogether with all these green dots and ships and whatnot out there, it's sitting north of 100 at least. 111 was the last figure I heard. So, yeah, what is the incentive, I suppose? We were told this is supposed to go to 24/7, and obviously that is not necessarily the case. So, it says three main decision making groups steer vessels and equipment pricing and availability: shipping lines, which offer freight rates and purchase and lease ships and containers; container equipment lessors, which order new boxes and offer leasing rates; and container factories, which offer the prices for newly constructed boxes. And I guess I'll pause there for a second and think of the article we just covered yesterday, day before. It says, hey, they've got all these stinking empties laying around that they can't get rid of. Why are they not being shipped back? Why can't they clear those things? Matter of fact, we're finding out that Texas is actually starting to line the border with these things. So why is there a need to build more when we could otherwise just turn around and send these things back? What is broken in that process? It says only a handful of companies control capacity in each of these three groups, and in each case, the current market situation is enormously profitable, removing incentives to compete more on price. According to data from Alpha Liner, the top 8 liner companies now control 81% of global capacity. Gasquier noted that prices obtained by shipping lines are extremely high, and there is still plenty of cargo waiting to be shipped in Asia. So, shipping lines really are an environment where there is absolutely no need to change your behavior. The same goes for container equipment factories, virtually all of which are in China. Following recent consolidation, the top 3 Chinese builders produce 83% of all new boxes. They are charging expensive prices for their containers, said Gasquier. They have a vested interest in maintaining the high pricing levels, so we really can't see why manufacturing prices would drop. They have no incentives to change behavior. The pattern repeats yet again in the container equipment leasing sector. Following recent consolidation, the top 5 players control 82% of the world's leasing capacity. Likewise, there is no risk here that the major players would suddenly change their behavior, maintained Gasquier. Add it all up, and it equates to a grand total of just 16 companies, 8 liners, 3 factory groups, and 5 box lessors that control over 80% of container ship capacity, box production capacity, and box leasing capacity. Shareholders of each of these 16 companies would benefit financially if today's high pricing persists. Aha! The cui bono, right? Who benefits at the end of the day? Well, anybody that sits atop the boards, directors, and things of that nature of those 16 companies, they're probably making money hand over fist. So, ocean carrier consolidation. Ocean carriers have been busy placing orders for new ships, whether directly on their own accounts or indirectly through chartered tonnage ordered by vessel leasing companies. The order book has more than doubled since last year, but the new ships won't hit the water until 2023-2024, offering no relief to U.S. cargo shippers in 2022. As the new ships are being built, leading liner companies are acquiring secondhand tonnage, further consolidating the market. According to Alphaliner, the top 8 liners are Maersk, based in Denmark, MSC out of Switzerland, CMA CGM out of France, COSCO, China, Hapag-Lloyd out of Germany, ONE out of Japan, and Evergreen, Taiwan, and HMM out of South Korea. And here we see kind of the breakdown in a pie chart format of the 8 just listed. All others represents about 4.6 million TEUs. And so here we see the other 8 comprising well over, probably I would say 75% of the pie at least. Says 5 months ago, these 8 carriers had 19.7 million 20-foot equivalent units of capacity on the water. Since June, they added 435,236 TEUs of capacity, bringing their combined fleet to 20.1 million TEUs and their market share to 81.1%. The net gain since June was driven entirely by increases in owned tonnage as opposed to new charters. The charter market is largely sold out, with MSC leading the charge as it continues to buy an unprecedented number of second-hand vessels. The largest liner companies are set to further increase their market dominance in 2023 and 24, when new builds are delivered, to the extent deliveries are not counterbalanced by lease expirations and scrapping of older tonnage. According to Alphaliner data, Maersk's order book totals 6% of its on-the-water capacity. CMA CGM's orders to fleet ratio is 17%. HMM and COSCO 20%. ONE 21%. Hapag-Lloyd 23%. MSC, which is far outpacing Maersk and is destined to become the world's leading carrier, at 24%, and Evergreen a whopping 48%. Liner shipping's consolidation transpired amid the loss-making market of the past decade, setting up surviving carriers to reap the benefits of the COVID-era surge in consumer demand. Continuing on, Maersk bought Hamburg Süd in 2017, COSCO merged with China Shipping in 2016, and bought OOCL in 2018. Hapag-Lloyd merged with CSAV in 2014, bought CCCNI in 2015, and acquired UASC in 2017. CMA CGM bought APL in 2015. NYK, K-Line, and MOL merged into ONE in 2016, and a major competitor, Hanjin Shipping, went insolvent in 2016. So, just like everything else, the big fish eat the little fish, just like what's happened with banking over the years, just like what's happened with the big media, right? Same thing here. Continuing on, it says, as Vespucci Maritime CEO Lars Jensen told American Shipper in a previous interview, we have definitely seen the effects of consolidation. At least on the main trades, there is a de facto oligopoly, which means the carriers are able to somewhat better prevent the price wars we've seen in the past. This is the logical endpoint of 20 years of gradual consolidation. So there you go, globalization. And this thing's going to go on here for a little bit. But the gist is that, as usual, everything gets consolidated into the hands of the few. Does it benefit the many? No. Obviously, just those 16 companies Nat cited. Cui bono? Who benefits? Well, certainly they do. And again, as mentioned, there is no incentive at this point to change a stinking thing. However, what can upset that apple cart? Let's domesticate our production. Let's put all that back in our hands here on this soil. Let's see how quickly that changes. All right, well, outside of that, we've talked quite a bit about the housing market and Zillow here as of late. Zillow finds institutional buyer for the 2,000 homes as disastrous flipping business winds down. And of course, we noted the other day, per their financials, that they took a pretty big hit. I think they're laying off, what was it, 25% of their workforce and getting out of the home flipping business. Zillow Group Inc.'s failed AI powered house flipping operation has been halted for more than a week. Stuck with thousands of homes, has found an institutional buyer for some, according to the Wall Street Journal. New York-based investment firm Pretium Partners LLC, U.S.'s second-largest single-family landlord, is expected to purchase upwards of 2,000 properties as the Seattle-based digital real estate company winds down its home flipping business called iBuyers. Pretium owns about 70,000 single-family homes and will add the new ones to its expanding portfolio, a company spokesperson told Wall Street Journal. Pretium has long been committed to providing quality housing options for residents. At a time when move-in ready homes are in short supply, we continue to invest in communities and improve access to housing throughout the U.S. The digital real estate company plans to sell a total of 18,000 homes. Of that, 9,800 homes it already owns, along with another 8,200 that are in the process of being bought. The company will receive market prices and is expected to take a 5 to 7% loss on these sales. Zillow's third quarter results reveal just how terrible its AI-powered house flipping operation was, with the company taking a $380 million hit. It plans to write down as much as $569 million in losses and reduce its workforce by a quarter. The sale to Pretium outlines how Zillow is transferring its portfolio to institutional investors who are on a mission to transform America into a nation of renters. Zillow has done a disservice to the American people by bidding up homes with cheap money, helping to stoke a housing affordability crisis that has left many people in no position to own but rather rent. A representative from Zillow said, "As we wind down our iBuying operations, we continue to sell homes the way we always have, which includes marketing them on the open market to sell them to all types of buyers, such as individuals and families, institutional or individual investors, and nonprofits. There's no word yet if Blackstone, which already is not only America's largest landlord, but also the world's largest real estate company with a $325 billion portfolio, will gobble up the rest of Zillow's housing portfolio since it's been on a buying spree this summer, purchasing 17,000 homes for $6 billion. In 2019, Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren blasted Blackstone for quote-unquote shamelessly profiting from U.S. foreclosure crisis, arguing that Wall Street's investment in single-family homes was a huge loss for America's renters. We doubt Warren will call out Zillow for its shameful actions. The company's sale to Pretium shows it's aiding and abetting Wall Street to become America's largest landlord. Remember, we live in a world where government and banks don't want you to own anything. And that's right. So at the end of the day, Zillow did its part, bid things up to where you and I, the typical consumer, where the only major investment that we have, an equity, is in our homes. We don't buy all the stonks and everything else that the institutionals do. Bid them up to where you can't afford them. And next thing you know, the best thing you can afford anywhere is renting. Playing right into the hands of the World Economic Forum, the Davos, the Klaus Schwab, saying, "You will own nothing and be happy." Good job, Zillow. That being said, GM says it's getting a better flow of semis and that all plants in North America are operating regularly, which is interesting because yesterday we found out and talked about chips and that, not recovering until at least probably 2023. We're going to be dealing with the headaches of chip shortages and whatnot, at least through the better part of next year. General Motors is out on Wednesday with surprising commentary on the ongoing semiconductor shortage. Namely, the auto giant says that it is seeing a better flow of semiconductors. Additionally, GM says that most of its assembly plants in North America are now back to running regular production, according to a report by Reuters. A spokesperson from GM said, In fact, the week of November 1st represented the first time since February that none of our North American assembly plants were idled due to the chip shortage. Well, they may not be idled, but how many cars are they cranking off the line from back then till now? Probably a lot less. Recall, at the end of October, we asked whether or not the shortage may end early, prompted by surprising disclosures by U.S. Steel. Says at the time, U.S. Steel CEO David Burritt said toward the end of his prepared remarks on the company's conference call that the worst may be passing. Discussing the demand picture heading into the fourth quarter and the new year, Burritt said that he was delighted to hear from multiple auto customers who are foreshadowing that the trough of the chip shortage could be behind us. They're beginning to add to the fourth quarter and first quarter build schedules, and indicating to us increasing usage rates, starting as early as next week. To us, it was a surprise that former JP Morgan news aggregation maven and current publisher of Vital Knowledge Media, Adam Crisafulli, called U.S. Steel's observation the most important macro comment from any earnings call this morning. It wasn't, and still isn't, clear what specific macroeconomic shift may have catalyzed this improvement. After all, West Coast port logjams are about the worst they have ever been. Given GM's latest statement, it is now starting to look like what we predicted in late October may have been accurate. If U.S. Steel's channel checks are accurate, and automakers are indeed ramping up production, then one of the biggest supply chain bottlenecks may indeed now be behind us, even if there is still a long way to go before the bigger picture renormalizes. And of course, we also know that certain semiconductor plants are going to be built in Arizona. Major dollars to do that, big investment. However, that thing won't be onboarded until at least probably 2023, if not 2024. So how are they getting these chips here? Are they airing them in, bypassing ships? Because typically, from a shipping perspective, air is usually more to ship than it is by water. And so, guess what? You, the consumer, would probably end up having to pay the price on that. All right, well, aside from that, New York preps to avoid repeat of Texas grid mayhem as winter looms. And of course, hearkening back to the early part of the year when Texas had its woes. Apparently, New York is taking steps to prevent something like that from happening. New York's grid operator modeled a scenario that was equivalent or greater than the Texas cold snap earlier this year that nearly collapsed the entire power grid and left millions in the dark, according to Bloomberg. Wes Yeomans, Vice President of Operations for the New York Independent System Operator, said electricity demand would soar to record highs under such a scenario. At the same time, deliveries of natural gas to power plants would be disrupted, he added. The disruption would cause power reserves to plummet by 90% to 526 megawatts, the model revealed. Yeomans said that NYISO had identified electrical circuits required to keep gas flowing through pipelines to prevent a grid collapse. Notice, most of the fossil fuel generation is downstate. And what have we seen by way of all these models and predictions as of late? AI? How well does that stuff really work? Everything from COVID to, heck, just the modeling and that we just got done talking about with predictions on chips and everything else, right? Not too good. So we'll have to see how it pans out if reality actually matches the theoretical side of things. Says one of the critical failures of the Texas power grid, besides declining renewable energy power, was outages at gas wells and processing plants that led to fuel shortages at power plants, and ultimately left millions of Texans in the dark for nearly a week in February. Modeling has helped NYISO better prepare its grid and protect customers against periods of colder weather that could boost demand for energy and strain grid operations. The grid operator doesn't want to repeat what happened in Texas earlier this year. NYISO's modeling and grid preparations come as a double-dip La Nina has formed. So what does this mean for the northeast climate this winter? Here's the map of what a typical La Nina winter looks like. Says, explaining more on the subject is Bob Larson, expert senior meteorologist for AccuWeather, recently told Daily Mail. The snowfall forecast for New York City is, on average, 29.8 inches, but our predictions up to 32 inches. So, it comes as no surprise that NYISO is preparing for what could be a brutal winter. It's not that big a jump. An extra 3 inches makes all that much difference. As my guess, snow is not really the factor here. It's probably the cold. And so we don't really know, and Larson didn't say just exactly how cold it's going to be. Just because we have snow does not necessarily equate to it being cold, right? So anyway, just a couple thoughts on that. So outside of some financials here this morning, keeping in tabs on what's been playing out with the Rittenhouse deal, Big League Politics has this. Says a Washington Examiner says Kyle Rittenhouse has moral fault for self-defense killings, claims dead pedophile deserves sympathy. What sort of backwardation is that? They're trying to vilify him, number one, with what the prosecution was doing yesterday. Talk about character assassination. They're trying to paint the case that this stuff was premeditated, pretty much. The Washington Examiner, ostensibly a conservative outlet, published an op-ed on Wednesday trashing Kyle Rittenhouse for his heroic actions in Kenosha, Wisconsin last year. Columnist Quinn Hillier said Rittenhouse is at clear moral fault for exercising his Second Amendment rights and defending property against a riotous left-wing mob. He also said that the left-wing thugs Rittenhouse shot dead, one of which was a convicted pedophile, deserve sympathy, despite the fact they were attacking the young man. I guess I'll pause there and say, based on everything that we've seen, and the media jumping aboard this from the start when all this panned out, they have a narrative in that they're trying to push. And it, of course, goes along the lines of with the Agenda 2030, with the Davos Klaus Schwab types, you will own nothing and be happy about it. They don't want you to be able to defend yourself. They don't want you to be able to defend property, life, liberty, land, any of that stuff. They see you as sheep that they can use to their benefit. You don't get the opportunity afforded to you to be able to defend yourself, jabs or otherwise. No, we tell you what you need because you don't know any better. That's really what they're trying to say here. Says the weapon was not a handgun that someone supposedly providing first aid in a riot zone might carry for protection. It was an AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle, hardly a reasonable choice for someone allegedly acting as a self-appointed medic, Hillier wrote, expressing the apparent opposition to the Second Amendment. Oh yes, because the AR-15 is scary. And of course, the prosecution yesterday listening to him, asking how he was able to get around getting a gun if he was only 17 at the time. Even he admitted, he says, hey, it looked cool. But does that make it any different than a regular long gun that shoots the same caliber? Of course not. It's optics. A host of conservatives are rushing to Rittenhouse's side, arguing he was acting in self-defense. Fear, perhaps, but not really self-defense. He created the dangerous situation with all his earlier actions. He was the one who killed 2 unarmed men who, even if not moral exemplars themselves, would still be alive had Rittenhouse not gone where he didn't belong while packing illegal heat, he added. And of course, you can read the entire article there. Hillier is getting dragged on social media for his abhorrent and disgraceful take on a courageous young man, and Rittenhouse, who will inevitably go down as an American hero. College conservative replying says they would have murdered him and walked. And that's exactly right. The media would have thrown up a stinking monument to him, right? Same as the crap that they did with George Floyd. They would have turned him into some sort of thing to be worshipped. And it's absolutely ridiculous. If the shoe were on the other foot. Quinn Hillier says, don't cry for Kenosha killer Kyle Rittenhouse. He should have minded his own business. 2 people are dead and a third lost his bicep. Well, you're morally wrong for finding fault, not with those who attacked Kyle, but with him defending himself. And somebody else responded, they're dead because they were trying to kill him. Yeah, absolutely. Another one responds, all three effed around and found out. Yeah, absolutely true. This guy says, what to do with your opinion. Fold your opinion as small as possible. Lubricate your opinion with either water or Vaseline. Lie down on your side and bring your upper knee closer to your chest. Now, stick your opinion as deep as possible in your rectum so that it will never come out again. Yeah, very nice. So they have lit into him. Still, just a teen, he's already 100 times a man you'll ever be. Never Trumpism really does warp formerly intelligent people. Yep. These people are clouded. Says, Big League Politics has reported on other times that the Washington Examiner betrayed the cause of conservatism when it mattered most. Since the January 6th mostly peaceful protest on the U.S. Capitol, many so-called conservatives have demonstrated their hatred of Trump and shown they have been working to subvert his American First agenda all along. Arguably, the worst examples of this establishment trend come from the Washington Examiner, a media outlet that is bankrolled by a Trump-averse globalist billionaire. The ostensibly conservative outlet has been echoing Democrat talking points since January 6th, blaming President Trump for allegedly inciting the violence, and promoting impeachment as a legal and viable option. In a recent article, the publication took it a step further by advocating for an abolition of the U.S. Constitution for the Biden administration to wage the war on terror in the homeland against Trump supporters. The article, titled How to Fix Our Domestic Terrorist Problem, is written by Kevin Carroll, a former clown, agent, and longtime Homeland Security bureaucrat. He compared President Trump supporters to al-Qaeda and proposed revoking their Second Amendment rights in what would be perhaps the most ghastly civil liberties abuse in U.S. history. So bottom line, Washington Examiner apparently has lost their crap, and obviously the billionaire globalist behind it cares nonetheless. Again, they want to play right into the Davos agenda, the Agenda 2030 UN crap. You don't get to own anything. You'll be happy about it. Oh, defending your rights, your property, yourself? No, not for you. We know better. And so along those lines, yesterday, we found out a couple other interesting headlines. Number one, Facebook users are unable to find results when searching for Kyle Rittenhouse amid the teen's homicide trial. On another one, YouTube hides dislikes following mass downvoting of Biden administration videos. So the censorship is going on real time, whether it be around the Rittenhouse deal, whether you like the agenda proposed by the resident Biden. But now we find out Biden's FCC pick is a fan of censorship. Gigi Son's hearing starts this week. Oh yeah, winner there. Looks like a total SJW, never Trumper, probably full of Trump derangement syndrome. President Joe Biden's new nominee to the FCC, Gigi Son, has previously called for more censorship on social media. She faces a Senate Commerce Committee for confirmation this week. Son is the founder of the activist group Public Knowledge, which has called for more government regulation of the internet and the media. Son has previously suggested that the FCC should be given the power to regulate conservative media. Well, of course, we can't have those other ideas in the marketplace floating around out there, now can we? For all my concerns about hashtag Facebook, I believe that Fox News has had the most negative impact on our democracy, she tweeted in October 2020. It's state-sponsored propaganda with few, if any, opposing viewpoints. Oh, Fox News? Well, it's technically no better than the rest of the Mockingbird media, so you might be slightly off there. Her tweet suggested she believes by allowing cable companies to carry them, the government is endorsing content on such outlets. She applauded the failed merger between Tribune Broadcasting and right-leaning Sinclair Broadcasting Group in 2018. Son has also touted the idea of using the FCC to censor media outlets by denying them licenses. Today is a good day for every American who believes that diversity of voices in the media is better for our democracy, she wrote, adding that the FCC should look at whether Sinclair is qualified to be a broadcast licensee at all. During Obama's era, She was a counselor to FCC Chair Tom Wheeler, who pioneered the net neutrality regulation that saw broadband providers defined as common carriers. The White House described Son as one of the nation's leading public advocates for open, affordable, and democratic communications networks, meaning they want her on the FCC board because, as noted in an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal, she favors deploying the agency's regulatory power to shackle broadband providers and silence conservative voices. If Son is confirmed, the 5-member FCC leadership will be split 3-2 in favor of Dem-leaning members. There is also a likelihood Son would be made the chair of the commission. How much you want to bet that she probably gets confirmed anyway? Anybody care to guess whether or not that happens? I think the odds are probably pretty good. I probably wouldn't bet against that. Insane. We've let the fox run the hen house. So aside from that, a bit of good news here this morning out of Just the News. Whether you like McConaughey or not, it looks like he's weighing a Texas governor bid, not supporting mandate for COVID-19 vaccine for kids. And, I don't know whether or not Abbott is planning to try and rerun again. We already know that Alan West is certainly a candidate in Texas as well. I guess McConaughey is going to throw his hat in the ring. Of course, he's been in the news as of late, advocating against this business of 5 to 11-year-olds, him having kids, even though he himself has already been vaxxed, according to some outlets. Says actor Matthew McConaughey, weighing a bid for Texas governor, says he does not believe in a government mandate that would require children to get a COVID-19 shot. I couldn't imagine having to vaccinate the younger kids, he said Tuesday during the New York Times DealBook Summit. I still want to find out more information. I'm vaccinated. My wife's vaccinated. I didn't do it because someone told me I had to. I chose to do it. The FDA recently authorized the Pfizer vaccine for emergency use in children ages 5 to 11. McConaughey, who continues to tease a possible run against incumbent Texas GOP Governor Greg Abbott, said that he is not opposed to vaccinations, but does not feel they should be required, especially for children. Do I think that there's any kind of scam or conspiracy theory? Hell no, the actor told the Times' Andrew Ross Sorkin. We all got to get off that narrative. There's not a conspiracy theory on the vaccines. Well, he might want to continue to do his research. McConaughey and his wife have 3 kids. The Academy Award winner also weighed in on the recently enacted Texas abortion ban, calling it overly aggressive. The law, which bans most abortions after 6 weeks from conception, is facing a Supreme Court challenge. It doesn't seem to open up the room for a sensible choice to be made at the right time, McConaughey said. I believe in this. More responsibility, more personal responsibility to make the right choices. And we've got to pick context with each situation. And each person's situation, each woman's situation. So, point taken. Obviously, I can side with him on the fact that yes, this stuff shouldn't be mandated for kids, but you can guarantee that if you look at the schedule of jabs kids take today versus, say, 15 years ago, 30 years ago, what's the key difference? Back in my day, dating myself here, I can't recall there being no 30, 40, 50 jabs you got to take from the time you're born to the time you turn 16, 18 years old. I think there was only, I can probably count on 2 hands a number. That was back then. And so today you look at the schedule, what is there, 60, 80, something like that? Guarantee you that they will try to sneak this in. And who technically benefits out of this? Cui bono? Always a question to ask. Who benefits? None other than the likes of, Mr. Borla, head of Pfizer, Linus Pockets. It's not for benefit to them, but not your kid's health. So aside from that, today being Veterans Day, feel-good story here out of Breitbart. Watch, Veterans United pays Marine couple's mortgage on 246th anniversary of Marine Corps. So a Marine couple with 2 young children discovered on the 246th birthday of the United States Marine Corps, the Veterans United Home Loans paid off their mortgage. Mario and Amy Perez are both Marine Corps veterans, and they closed on a new home in Jacksonville, North Carolina on November 9th, according to ABC 11. On November 10th, the 246th anniversary of the inception of the United States Marine Corps, they learned live on Good Morning America that Veterans United Home Loans paid their entire mortgage. Good Morning America reporter Rob Marciano showed up outside their new home in the early morning, along with 50 of the family's closest friends and new neighbors. Accompanying the large group of friends and neighbors were a local high school marching band and a junior reserve officer training corps. The couple, still unaware that their home had been paid for, watched as Marciano began to tear up a copy of their mortgage. There's no good anymore because Veterans United That's no good, anymore because Veterans United Home Loans has paid off your home, the reporter announced. Mario and Amy embraced one another as emotions overcame them. I don't even know what to say, Amy said, while wiping tears of joy away from her eyes. He says, it's unreal to even think that. I mean, never would we have thought of anything like this. I'm out of words, Mario stated. The couple had been through a trying process while looking for a home in the current market. Says if you saw a house that popped up for sale, there was 70 people lined up to see this house, and there were people that were putting tens of thousands of dollars more over the asking price. So it was tough, Mario stated, according to Good Morning America. Tony Johnson, a friend of Mario's and a fellow Marine, says that Mario embodies the values of the United States Marine Corps. Marine Corps values, honor, courage, and commitment. The hard thing is to live by it. And that's one thing that Mario has done, Johnson told Good Morning America. Veterans United Home Loans is providing 11 veterans with homes in honor of Veterans Day, which will be observed on November 11th. The Perez family is the 7th family to be awarded a new home, while the 8th, 9th, and 10th families remain unknown. The spot for the 11th family is still to be determined, and eligible military families can enter to win the slot. So let's let a little of this play through.
Happy Veterans Day, America. To all the veterans, we say thank you for your service. Thank you for what you gave and for what you did. But you know what? We're just as grateful for what you do now, for who you are, and what you do every day in your community centers, churches, and driveway barbecues. Guys like James. Hey, do that thing, man. Yeah! And like Fernando. Booyah! That one's not coming back. Nice job, coach. Him, her, that guy. Her too. Yep, both of them. They're all veterans. And our communities are made better, thanks to veterans. So to say thank you, we're giving 11 houses to 11 veterans.
What? No way.
Are you serious? So yeah, it is a happy Veterans Day, America.
I'm good, I'm not crying.
So there you have it out of Veterans United. One more to round things out here this morning says, why we set aside a day for veterans out of Liberty Nation here this morning. It says all Americans who have performed military service have a common bond. They are veterans. They gave some of themselves to the country's call. And unfortunately, too many made the ultimate sacrifice. Our nation sets aside a day of remembrance for their personal and their families' sacrifice to remind fellow citizens that their freedom, comfort, and pursuit of happiness came at a price. Whether drafted, as many were during the Vietnam War, or volunteer, they are a special breed. However, the population of veterans is becoming more exclusive and precious as the number of those having served in the armed forces declines as a percentage of the U.S. population. In an analysis of America's veterans titled, The Changing Face of America's Veteran Population, the Pew Research Center found that, currently, about 19 million veterans represent less than 10% of the adult population. Of those, military members who served in the Gulf War from 1990 to 2021 have surpassed the Vietnam-era veterans, as Pew reports. Gulf War-era veterans now account for the largest share of all U.S. veterans, having surpassed Vietnam-era veterans in 2016, according to the VA's 2018 population model estimates. VA estimates for 2021 indicate there are 5.9 million American veterans who served during the Vietnam era, and 7.8 million who served in the Gulf War era, which spans from August 1990 through the present. Additionally, of U.S. veterans, more than 3/4, or 78%, served in wartime. Nonetheless, the portion of the total U.S. population with military experience is declining. From 1980 to 2018, living veterans declined from 18% of U.S. adults to 7%. The number of active duty military members has dropped dramatically, from 3.5 million in 1968 during the military draft era to about 1.4 million, or less than 1% of all U.S. adults, in today's all-volunteer force. Though the declining numbers of military veterans as a percentage of the U.S. population portends an American citizenry where very few have sacrificed to preserve American values, a statistic that should give greater pause is the number of members of Congress who have military service. Again, from the Pew Research Center. Says, as the share of Americans who are veterans has declined, so has the share of legislators who have previously served in the military. In the current Congress, 17% of lawmakers in both houses had prior military service, down drastically from just a few decades ago. The share of senators who are veterans reached a post-Korean War peak of 81% in 1975, while the share among House members peaked in 1967 at 75%. These percentages should cause concern. If Congress is going to send young men and women to foreign countries to fight for the homeland, parents of soldiers, sailors, airmen, and guardians would like legislators to understand what they are asking. Sending America's youth into combat and other dangers should come with a grasp of the challenge. As it is, fewer congressional leaders have any such experience. To acknowledge this problem, both Dems and Republicans make special efforts to recruit military veterans to serve in Congress. Despite those efforts, Leo Shane III reported in Military Times the number of military veterans in Congress will drop again next session, the 117th session of Congress, reaching the lowest level of members with some military experience since at least World War II. As women take more prominent positions in the U.S. Armed Forces, veteran women legislators are increasingly needed. But the trend is not going in that direction, as the American Legion explained on its website. The 2020 races also saw a record number of women veterans running for office. However, the number of women veterans who were elected to serve in the new Congress decreased by one from the last Congress. Only 6 women currently serving in Congress have military experience. So when the country asks for extraordinary performance from its military, those members of Congress who make that request should understand thoroughly what they are talking about. That understanding appears to be vanishing, as the numbers of military veterans are expected to decline even further in the next 2 decades. Yet, veterans continue to be revered in American society, and deservedly so. A 2019 Pew Research Center survey of U.S. veterans and adults, generally as part of a more extensive research study, the American Veteran Experience and the Post-9/11 Generation, revealed the following. Large shares among veterans and the U.S. public say people who have served in the military are more disciplined, patriotic, and loyal than those who have not served. These traits serve our nation admirably, and we desperately need them today as the nation reels from polarizing political and social forces. Veterans stand as the model for willingness to serve. In the Pentagon's river entrance, in the stairwell between the second and third floors leading to the Secretary of Defense's suite of offices, there is a large painting of Isaiah talking with God. The inscription in Isaiah 6:8, which reads, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Here am I, send me." As the Wall Street Journal recorded in 2017, the verse has served both as an inspiration for countless service members who pass by it, and as a reminder to those who may not have served of the nobility of those who have answered, "Send me." Thank you, veterans, on your special day. So that's a piece out of Liberty Nation here this morning. And of course, hat tip to all the veterans out there. Hopefully, you guys celebrate your day, and hopefully somebody buys you a lunch. Take a time, thank a vet here on this Veterans Day for their sacrifice for what little freedom we have left in this country. And with that, I bid you adieu here this morning, and we'll see you back a little bit later on tonight on the Soapbox, where I'll be on at 9 p.m. Eastern. Take care. God bless, everybody.